everyone, it's Katrina. Number 10. Indestructible Mars microbes. There may be significantly more life on Mars than anyone could have ever anticipated. Researchers recently made a shocking discovery that ancient bacteria could be hiding underneath the Martian surface. It may have been there shielded from radiation and the harsh conditions for millions of years. For the time being, there hasn't been any true evidence of life that's been found on the red planet. Instead, researchers simulated Martian conditions in a laboratory here on Earth. They were curious to see how bacteria and fungi might react in a Martian environment. Scientists were shocked to discover that bacteria is able to survive for at least 280 million years if it's buried under the surface. What this suggests is that if life ever did exist on Mars, which most scientists believe it did, there's a possibility that it could exist again. Dormant life forms could be slumbering underneath the subsurface of the planet. But the issue with finding these life forms is that we need better technology to reach them. We would need to create a Martian rover that can drill into the soil to take samples. This study was done by researchers at Northwestern University. The team says the reason life is currently unrealistic on Mars is due to the lack of water, both flowing and in the atmosphere. Because there is no water, cells and spores would automatically dry out. The surface temperature of Mars is also about the same as dry ice, which makes sustaining life more than a little tricky. These same scientists discovered that a microbe named Deinococcus radiodurans, Conan the bacterium, is surprisingly suited to life in the inhospitable Martian wasteland. It can survive extremely harsh conditions, even freezing temperatures and dehydration. It's so hardy that it can live for almost 300 million years. It can also survive 28,000 times more radiation than the typical amount of exposure that would kill a person. Number 9. Pink auroras. A solar storm smashed into the planet in early November of 2022. Scientists have known about solar storms for decades, but their potential for damage has always been something of a mystery. Some have speculated that a particularly bad solar storm could wipe out all electronics on the planet, sending us back into the Dark Ages. This time, the solar storm punched a hole in the planet's magnetic field. It didn't wipe out everyone's electronics, but it did create a marvelous display of color. In the area above Norway where the hole was made, people witnessed a rare light show. Pink auroras illuminated the night sky like something you would expect to see on an alien planet. Marcus Varick, a local tour guide, told Live Science that he had never seen anything like it in over a decade of leading tours. He even called it a humbling experience. The pink auroras lit up the sky after the crack emerged in the magnetic field, and then something even more wild happened. After about 6 hours, the hole in the magnetic sphere sealed itself, and then a blue ring emerged in the sky like a portal to another dimension. Scientists are still baffled as to what in the world happened and what it means for the future. Number 8. Radioactive tree rings. Researchers have recently discovered evidence of radiation storms that have swept across our planet periodically over the last 10,000 years. Scientists analyzed radioactive signatures found on tree rings across the globe in order to study this interesting phenomenon. They did this by looking at radioactive carbon-14, also known as radiocarbon. Apparently, when radiation hits the atmosphere, it turns nitrogen atoms into radiocarbon. The radiocarbon then filters through pretty much everything, including plants and animals. There is even evidence of this that can be observed in tree rings. Because radiocarbon gradually decays back into nitrogen, scientists can use it for radiocarbon dating. It's a natural clock that's reliable for millions of years. When it comes to tree rings, scientists can read the radiocarbon to get a firm record of cosmic rays penetrating the atmosphere. Normally, cosmic rays are perpetually blasting our planet. However, in 2012, Japanese physicist Fusa Miyake discovered an anomaly. He looked at tree rings made in the year 774 AD and found a full year of cosmic radiation that hit the tree at the same time. More researchers found similar events at various intervals going all the way back to 7176 BC and through to 993 AD. It's a huge mystery because nobody knows what it means. It seems to suggest that there are huge explosions of cosmic energy hitting Earth once every few thousand or few hundred years, but it seems to be completely random. If it happens again, nobody knows what the consequences might be. Number 7. UFO scraps. In 1957, there were newspaper reports of an unidentified flying object, something that appeared to be a flying saucer with a copper bottom, that crashed on Silpho Moor near Scarborough in the United Kingdom. The object itself was recovered, tested, and examined thoroughly. The alleged spaceship turned out to be of terrestrial origin, yet nobody was entirely sure what the thing was. It looked like a small flying saucer that could have been piloted by very tiny extraterrestrials. To make matters even more confusing, there were mysterious reports that the metallic saucer contained thin copper sheets engraved with hieroglyphics. As far as experts are concerned, the UFO was an elaborate hoax. The item was tested by researchers at the Natural History Museum and the University of Manchester, and they determined it didn't come from space. The hieroglyphics were likely carved into the mystery object by someone who thought it would make for a good news story. And yet, this isn't where the story ends. The Science Museum, where the mystery object is currently being held, also has within its collection a cigarette tin. Allegedly, inside the tin are 3 curious scraps from an unknown device. The pieces were also discovered at Silpho Moor and may have something to do with the original copper-bottomed saucer. Researchers believe there could be hundreds of these metallic scraps that were taken by curious scavengers in the 1950s. The pieces are more than likely lost these days or stashed in boxes in people's attics. Nobody knows what it all means, but many speculate these scraps are from an alien ship that broke apart on impact. This incident has been compared to the Roswell incident in New Mexico in the 1940s. In fact, the 2 alleged alien crashes were only a decade apart. Number 6. Malcolm's Road Beach. Malcolm's Road Beach is a secluded stretch of coastline located in Turks and Caicos. The beach offers beautiful white sand, turquoise waters, and clear blue skies. Tourists that visit this place mostly care about relaxing in the sun and enjoying the quiet, but there is a lot more going on here. The beach is very close to the drop-off edge of the Caicos Islands Plateau, which suddenly drops to over 7,000 feet deep. This isn't the only surprise along Malcolm's Road Beach either. The beautiful white sand is made of broken coral and shell matter. These fine grains of sand are the result of dead and decayed coral being worn out over time. But these days, the coral reefs aren't as plentiful as they once were. And for that reason, you can find artificial reefs here. One of the artificial reefs found at Malcolm's Road Beach is a rather bizarre geological feature. From above, it looks as if there are huge holes on the sea floor. But in fact, these are concrete artificial reef balls. They have been placed all along the beach to help facilitate coral growth and to shelter fish. Number 5. Viking Treasure Hoard. A man equipped with his metal detector went on a walk in a field near his house in Norway when he stumbled upon something very interesting. This was an activity he enjoyed doing on occasion, with the small shred of hope that one day he would find treasure. Then, just before Christmas of 2021, he did just that. Pavel Bednarski discovered one of the most impressive Viking Age silver hoards in all of Europe. He first uncovered some fragments a couple inches under the soil. Then he found rings, ancient Arabic coins, and a silver bracelet. He reached out to historians and archaeologists, and what followed was the unveiling of a major Viking treasure in Norway. Silver fragments found in the soil were dated at 1,100 years old. They were crafted in the 8th century at the height of Viking exploration. This was a period of time when Vikings were pillaging much of Europe's coastlines and building settlements in unknown lands. But here's where things get even more fascinating. The silver treasure was all found to be broken into pieces. Things like silver plates, scales, and fragments of jewelry. It was all broken so that each piece roughly weighed the exact same. Researchers believe this was because the silver was being used as currency. Instead of trading a giant silver plate for a chicken, the plate was smashed into individual pieces to turn them into specific units of currency. This was long before real coins started to be used in Europe. In total, there were 46 silver fragments dug out of the earth, weighing only 1.5 ounces or 42 grams. That's around the weight of a golf ball. And yet it's believed all the silver combined could have been bartered for a little more than half a cow, which would have been quite valuable at the time. Number 4. Ancient migration patterns. Scientists recently completed a study that revealed surprising migration patterns in South America from thousands of years ago. In order to understand the importance of this discovery, we have to go back about 30,000 years. This was a time when the first human beings from Siberia traveled across the Bering Strait land bridge to the coastline of America. Many of these people sailed along the coast until they arrived in South America. These migrants then dispersed in many different directions, but scientists have never been able to trace their movements. Just recently, though, researchers from Florida Atlantic University sequenced DNA taken from human skeletons found at prehistoric sites in Brazil. The scientists then used computational genetic analysis to recreate the original migration pattern of the first humans to live in South America. What they found is that ancient people moved up and down the Atlantic coast, building small settlements as they went. They followed a route of about 3,270 miles, linking Panama with Brazil and ancient Uruguay. What they found was that many of the original inhabitants of South America shared DNA with indigenous Australians. This discovery was shocking because nobody knows how that happened. There is an entire ocean separating Australia from South America, yet somehow the indigenous people of both places had very similar DNA. To this day, it's still a huge mystery. Some have even speculated that Australians somehow crafted primitive boats and crossed the sea tens of thousands of years ago. Number 3. The Stone City of the Huns. On the eastern shore of the Caspian Sea, in the grassy plains of Kazakhstan, a mysterious stone complex was recently identified. The complex is about 1,500 years old and spans an area of roughly 200 American football fields. Multiple stone structures were found here, all of them ruined and heavily eroded. The smallest structure appears to be some kind of house, about 13 feet by 13 feet. The biggest structure looks to be a communal building, 112 feet long, and likely designed for holding large gatherings. Everything here was made of stone, and some of the monuments even look like stone circles that you might find in England. The mysterious stone city was first identified in 2010 by a local man with a metal detector. However, nobody was allowed to do research here until 2014 because of the complex political situation in the area. All these years later, the site has still barely been investigated because of its location in Kazakhstan, but there are still some theories surrounding it. Experts believe the ancient stone city was built by the Huns around the same time the Roman Empire collapsed. The Huns were a nomadic tribe of people who ravaged Europe starting in the 4th century. They were part of the reason that Rome fell to ruin, and they entered Europe from the chilly Eurasian steppes. This stone city, which is in such poor shape that very little archaeological evidence has been found, may have been one of their strongholds. They could have lived here before and after they started sacking European cities. The true mystery is that nobody knows why the city was abandoned, or if it really was the Huns who built it. Researchers also don't understand what possible function this place served in the Dark Ages. Number 2. Slovakian Bigfoot. Bigfoot may have just been discovered in Slovakia. A person walking through the dense mountain forest heard something strange and started recording. They captured on camera a blurry, snarling creature that seemed to be shaking the trees. Like most Bigfoot sightings, this one is impossible to verify. The footage is indistinct and unreliable, although it does show some kind of humanoid being growling and making other strange noises in the bushes. It could have been a Bigfoot, a European Yeti, or it may have been nothing but an agitated bear. However, the person recording the video didn't stick around long enough to find out, and instead took off running. Number 1. Sunken warship. The wreckage of a warship from the 17th century was recently uncovered near the island of Vaxholm in Sweden. The ship, called the Applet, was deliberately sunk in 1659 to make a blockade outside Stockholm to protect it from seaborne attacks. The thought was that by sinking vessels in the waterways leading to the city, the citizens could prevent attacks from pirates and other marine menaces. The ship sank about 3 decades after its sister ship the Vasa sank on her maiden voyage in 1628. At the time these ships were built, they were some of the most advanced pieces of naval engineering in the world. The Vasa was a particularly impressive vessel and was basically a floating war machine. The ship was 226 feet long and was armed with an impressive 64 guns. It was also capable of firing 24-pound cannonballs, which were able to blast apart lesser vessels within moments. However, after the Vasa sailed only 4,000 feet away from its anchorage in Stockholm Harbor, a gust of wind pushed it over and it sank. The Applet was completed a year later and then deliberately destroyed after 3 decades of war with the Netherlands, Denmark, and Poland. Nobody except the scientists investigating the wreckage currently knows where it is. The Applet's exact location is being kept a secret by Swedish archaeologists because it happens to be in a sensitive military area. The only people allowed down there right now are workers from the Museum of Wrecks and a handful of authorized Navy personnel. Thanks for watching! Which discovery did you find the most fascinating? Let me know in the comments below and be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. See you soon! Bye!